Title: My Cheating Wife arrogantly declared, "Listen to me. If you file for divorce, I'll leave you without a penny. You'll have to pay not only for the divorce itself, but also alimony to me and child support. You'll also lose custody rights over the children, so I'll continue having fun with my lover." I snapped back, "Do you really think I'll tolerate and support you in such a lifestyle?" She laughed, "You have no other choice." Chapter 1: The Ultimatum. The kitchen light flickered once, casting a strange shadow across her face, the kind of shadow that made her smirk look even colder. "Listen to me," she said, her voice slicing through the air like glass. "If you file for divorce, I'll leave you without a penny. You'll have to pay not only for the divorce but also alimony to me and child support, and you'll lose custody rights over the children. So," she leaned back, folding her arms like a queen on her throne, "I'll continue having fun with my lover." I stared at her, my fingers tightening around the mug in my hand. She thought she was untouchable, that the law, the kids, the money, everything was in her control. "Do you really think I'll tolerate and support you in such a lifestyle?" I asked, my voice low, steady but simmering. Her laugh was sharp, almost triumphant. "You have no other choice." In that moment, I didn't answer, not because I agreed, but because I realized something. She wasn't just arrogant. She was confident because she thought she'd covered every possible angle, and that meant she hadn't even considered the one I was about to take. Chapter 2: How She Built Her Throne. When we first met, I didn't see the arrogance. Back then she was charming, the kind of woman who could make a crowded room feel like it revolved around her. I fell hard, believing the laughs, the late-night talks, the way she'd rest her head on my shoulder when life got heavy. We built a life together. 2 kids, a house that always smelled like fresh coffee, and a shared dream that someday we'd take the kids on a trip across Europe. I worked long hours to make that dream possible. She stayed home at first, then picked up part-time work. Nothing serious, just enough to give her some independence, she said. Somewhere along the way, her independence turned into secrecy. She began dressing up more for work meetings than for dinners with me. She'd step outside to take calls, lowering her voice until it was almost a whisper. The kids learned to stop asking where Mom was when she wasn't home. And I told myself it was stress, or maybe she just needed space, because the alternative, that she was betraying me, was too ugly to face. The breaking point came the day she found out a friend's husband had lost custody in a divorce. She became smug, like she'd just learned a cheat code. From then on, she stopped hiding her disdain. She'd make comments about real men providing without asking questions. She'd roll her eyes if I asked about her schedule. And whenever I hinted at trouble in our marriage, she'd remind me, almost casually, of how badly a divorce would ruin me. By the time she sat across from me in the kitchen and declared her little speech, she wasn't warning me. She was gloating, and that was the last mistake she'd make without me making her pay for it. Chapter 3: Turning the Tables. I didn't shout. I didn't even argue. I just leaned back in my chair, looking at her with the same detached calm I used to wear when negotiating million-dollar contracts. "All right," I said, like a man conceding a chess match. "If that's how you see it." That was the moment she thought she'd won. Her lips curled into a satisfied smile, and she went back to scrolling through her phone as if the conversation was over. But it wasn't. It was the beginning. That night, while she was in the shower, I took a slow walk through the house, the one I paid for, the one she thought she'd automatically keep. I started making a mental list. Every receipt, every document, every little detail she had overlooked because she was so sure of her power. I remembered the joint account she used for her fun money and the credit cards under her name, cards I paid off every month. I remembered that she'd been boasting to her friends about a secret investment account her lover had helped her set up, but the fool had done it using our marital funds. And I remembered one more thing: my uncle, the family lawyer, who had quietly told me years ago, "If things ever go south, come to me before you go to anyone else." By midnight, My plan was taking shape. I would gather evidence. I would trace every transaction. I would prove she had not only been cheating, but also misusing marital assets to fund her lifestyle. And when I filed for divorce, it wouldn't be me paying alimony. It would be her wondering how the hell she lost everything she thought she owned. Chapter 4. The First Crack. 3 days later, she made her first mistake. I had been acting exactly the same, polite, distant, and busy. If she noticed I was spending more time in the study, she didn't care enough to ask. Her lover was keeping her occupied, and her arrogance had her blind. That evening, I casually mentioned over dinner, "By the way, I'll be out of town next weekend. Business trip." She smirked, not even looking up from her plate. "Perfect. Gives me time to have the girls over." Girls. I knew exactly who that meant. In reality, there was no business trip. I'd already spoken with a private investigator, an old friend from my army days who now made a living catching cheating spouses. We set everything up, hidden cameras, GPS trackers, and discreet surveillance. It didn't take long. By the next night, I had crystal clear video of her and her lover, and a few of her so-called friends, enjoying the house like it was their own personal playground. They weren't even discreet about it. Champagne, expensive takeout, and lingerie, all on my dime. But here's the best part. In her drunken gloating, she bragged to one of her friends about her secret account and how she was using it to buy her lover something special soon. She didn't realize the mic had picked up every word. When I reviewed the footage with my uncle, he smiled like a man holding 4 aces. Not only do we have proof of infidelity, but we can prove financial misconduct. This isn't just a divorce, Daniel. This is a legal massacre waiting to happen. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself a genuine smile. She thought I had no choice. She thought she was untouchable. But she had just handed me the keys to her own downfall. Chapter 5. The Shift in the Wind. It started small. The first sign something was wrong came on a Tuesday morning when her credit card declined at her favorite boutique. She came home fuming, tossing the shopping bag, empty, onto the counter. "There's something wrong with the bank," she snapped. "They froze my card." I put on my best concerned face. "Really? That's strange. I'll look into it." I already knew exactly why it happened. My uncle's legal team had quietly initiated preliminary asset protection moves. Her personal cards were tied to our joint assets, which meant any suspicious withdrawals or large transactions were now under review. By Thursday, she was in a full-blown panic. "I can't access my savings," she said, pacing the kitchen. "The bank says it's under investigation." I shrugged. "Maybe you should be more careful with your lifestyle." Her eyes narrowed. "What does that mean?" "Nothing," I said, sipping my coffee. But in my mind, I could see the walls beginning to close in. The real blow came 2 days later when a process server handed her an envelope at the spa. Inside were divorce papers, along with copies of the surveillance footage, transcripts of her drunken bragging, and a financial audit summary highlighting every shady withdrawal she'd made. I wasn't home when it happened, but according to the spa receptionist, she went pale, dropped her drink, and stormed out without a word. From that moment on, the arrogance in her voice was gone. Now, there was only fear. Chapter 6. The desperation. The call came late at night. Her voice trembled, but she tried to mask it with forced authority. "Listen, we don't have to do this. We can talk. I'll stop seeing him. We can work something out." I leaned back in my chair, letting the silence stretch. "Work something out?" I repeated. "You mean after you threatened to ruin me? After you said I had no choice?" She sniffled. "I didn't mean it like that. I was just angry." "No," I said flatly. "You meant every word. And you were right about one thing. I do have a choice. I've already made it." The next morning, her lawyer called mine. They tried every angle: partial custody, shared accounts, even dropping alimony demands in exchange for halting the evidence submission. But it was far too late. By the end of the week, the court had issued temporary orders in my favor. I retained full custody. She was barred from accessing any joint assets pending the final judgment, and thanks to the mountain of evidence, Her chances of alimony had evaporated completely. When she finally saw the full weight of the case against her, the bank records, the photos, the recorded threats, her confidence shattered. The woman who once smirked and said I had no choice now couldn't even meet my eyes in court. I didn't say a word to her as I walked out that day. Her lover was waiting outside the courthouse, but the moment he saw the reporters swarming her, he turned and walked away without looking back. Chapter 7. The Final Blow. The final hearing felt less like a legal proceeding and more like a quiet execution. Hers. The judge's tone was measured but merciless as he read the verdict. Full custody to me, no alimony, no claim to the house, and only supervised visitation until she could prove stability. Every threat she had thrown at me in arrogance had turned into a boomerang, slicing back at her with brutal precision. She sat there frozen, her lawyer whispering frantically in her ear, but the words seemed to slide past her like water over glass. She kept staring straight ahead, not at me, not at the judge, just blank. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed her. They asked about the infidelity evidence, the recorded threats, the financial manipulation. She tried to push through, but cameras caught every second of her silent retreat. By evening, the footage was already trending online. Her lover didn't stick around. Within days, he'd blocked her, moved out of their shared apartment, and was photographed with someone new. She lost her job shortly after. Apparently, her employer wasn't fond of public scandals tied to fraud and custody battles. A month later, I was tucking my daughter into bed when she asked softly, "Daddy, are we safe now?" I smiled, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Safer than ever." Because I hadn't just won the case. I'd taken back our peace, our future, and our freedom from a woman who thought she could cage me with fear. And she was left with exactly what she'd earned. Nothing. Epilogue. Her last move. 3 years passed in silence. I'd built a steady life for myself and my daughter. School runs, weekend hikes, laughter over burnt pancakes. The chaos she left behind had finally faded into background noise. Then one morning, a thick envelope arrived in the mail, her handwriting on the front. Inside was a single letter, written in shaky pen strokes. She claimed she'd changed, that she was sober now, that she'd been wronged by the system and deserved another chance. Her plea was wrapped in emotional hooks, memories of our early days, mentions of our daughter's childhood. But one line stood out like poison. "If you don't help me, I'll tell her everything, my version of it, and I promise she'll hate you for keeping me away." It was a last-ditch threat from someone who'd run out of allies, money, and credibility. I didn't write back. Instead, I forwarded the letter to my lawyer, who quietly filed it in court as proof of harassment. The judge extended her supervised visitation ban another 3 years. A month later, I saw her, not in person, but on a local news segment. She'd been arrested for trying to scam an elderly couple out of their home. That was the last time her name ever crossed my mind, because in the end, she'd destroyed herself. All I had to do was step out of the way and let her fall. Was this revenge perfectly justified? Tell us what you think about this story in the comments below. Like the story. If you think this story is justified, share it with someone who needs this energy. And subscribe to Lauren's story for more jaw-dropping tales of betrayal and justice. Because here, every lie has its reckoning, and every betrayal finds its shadow. Stay sharp, stay strong, and stay tuned